Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Monica Brooks and I'm here to welcome you to the year 2025. I am so excited to be here knowing that it is a gift to get older. It is a gift to get wrinkles. It is a gift to get gray hair, which I am getting. And I'm just happy to be here. And I'm happy that you're here too, because today we're talking about stress. Stress is something that we all feel, but I love learning about how things impact us on a cellular level, even our thoughts, even things we read, things we watch. Like it's all impacting us and it can cause us stress. So I'm excited to introduce you to Dr. Emily. She is a functional medicine practitioner. She'll talk about what that is, but she's also a dear friend of mine. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Becoming a Better You podcast. My name is Monica Brooks, and I'm a self-improvement enthusiast who is eager to share tips and strategies to help you become the best version of yourself. As an inspirational speaker who transitioned from a corporate career, I'm here to guide you on your journey towards enhancing your overall human experience. If you're ready to take the first step towards becoming the best version of yourself, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome, Dr. Emily, to the podcast. I am so excited to have you here. And we've been connected for quite a while, but I cannot wait for our listeners to learn more about you and our topic today. We're going to be talking about stress and managing stress and what that looks like. And stress is something you love talking about too. So why don't you just give a brief introduction so our listeners can get to know you?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. I've been looking really forward to doing this as well. And, you have a special audience that I am excited to get to know a little bit better today. So I'm Emily Rodersheimer, and I was a family practice doc for, I've been a doctor for 22 years now, but I was in family practice for about 13 years when I learned of something called functional medicine. And I was like, what is this? What is this all about? And as I started to learn more and more, I started to implement some of the changes that we can do with functional medicine on myself. And I was able to reverse my rheumatoid arthritis that I had had since age 10.
Wow.
So I had been injecting myself with multiple medications every week for most of my life, and they were helpful. But once I found the idea of functional medicine and that, we can get to the root cause, I was able to reverse my rheumatoid arthritis. I don't take any medicines now. And once I learned that was possible, I really needed to share the power of functional medicine with as many people as would listen. So
This almost sounds like too good to be true. Like people are like, really? You reversed your RA? Like, come on. But this is
yeah.
real. This is something that you started to dig into because you started learning more and more about it.
Right, right. It was this major mindset shift of, the main thing I learned in functional medicine, first conference I went to was what's the root cause of X, Y, or Z symptom or condition? And believe it or not, I'd gone through traditional medical school, residency, all of that, and no one had ever mentioned root cause. And when I learned that concept, I was like, well, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Why do I have rheumatoid arthritis, right? Or
Yeah.
why do I feel tired all the time? Or, insert whatever you're dealing with. And I was kind of just sort of fired up, like, why doesn't everyone know? Like, we can go digging and looking and start to change at the root cause source and really make a humongous impact.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's changed my life. So I went on to get certified in functional medicine, and I left my primary care practice. So now I have opened my own business. I have my own practice, 5 years now, doing strictly functional medicine, and it is like the love of my life. I
I
love
think
what
it's amazing once you start digging in and asking the right questions, what you can find out. And we love our doctors, right? We love doctors. They are
yes,
very knowledgeable.
yes.
But I think sometimes you just get this awareness, like, what else could it be? As an example, I have what's the thing in your nose called? It starts with a T, turbinates or
Oh, your turbinates, yeah.
turbinates. Okay, mine are swollen.
Okay.
And they said take Nasonex and da da da. Okay, that could solve my problem, right? And it
Yes,
did, but I still don't know why. I want to know why so I don't have to take this drug
yes,
anymore. And I think
yes.
that sometimes the approach is how can I make you feel better? Doctors
Mm,
want people to feel better, and that's what they do.
Yes.
But I think getting to the root cause, we want this to be sustainable. So
Right.
I that's why I loved when I started learning about functional medicine, I was like, oh, this is good stuff right here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it
um,
is not to discount the necessity of conventional
exactly.
medicine by any means, but there is just another avenue for those of us who are interested in taking it.
So, one of the things that I talk about when I go to present is this body mind connection when it comes to stress. And some
Mm.
of this I even learned from you, like cortisol levels. I love talking about cortisol
Mhm.
levels, but I'm not that educated in it. I just know
Sure.
the very basics. But I thought, like, what a great thing for people if they could start this new year and
Mhm.
start managing their stress. Like, yes, food, diet, exercise, all those things are really important, but let's not forget about the mental aspect as
Yes.
well. So, I want to talk about stress. I want to talk about cortisol levels. And I want you to start like where should we start to
Yeah,
unpack this
yeah.
so we understand what's happening to us when we feel stress.
Sure, sure. Well, I'll just start by saying that, I feel like today's day and age, stress is just normalized. It's
Yeah.
just what we do and we ignore it. It's just like, this is my baseline. This is how life is. But it's not normal. So the way our body was adapted for stress is for little bursts. You hear like the being chased by a tiger scenario, right? So you're
Mhm.
in this stressful situation for however many minutes, maybe a little bit longer. Then either you're dead because the tiger caught you, or you made it out alive and the stress goes down. There's like this reset that happens with the nervous system. That's the normal. We go from stressed to back to kind of a homeostasis or parasympathetic state where we're rested.
So that's where we want to be most of the
That
time.
is exactly, exactly. But in today's day and age, we've got deadlines, we've got sick aging parents, we've got children, we've got, all you name it. And we can be productive literally 24 hours a day if we want to with our computers and our phones and all of it. So we just keep taking on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And maybe it's not terribly stressful, like being chased by a tiger is pretty darn stressful. But it is a stressor on the system to just keep going and going and going and going.
And then
So
we
we
get
don't,
used to it, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
that we
we
think
just
that's
think
the normal.
exactly. And we don't get into that rested, peaceful state where everything calms down and where actually our body can do the healing work that we need.
Wow. So you're saying not having a certain amount of stress can actually help heal your body. Is that
Exactly.
right? And
Yes.
maybe we don't know what that healing even is, like something specific, right? It's just it feels good, I'd imagine, holistically for ourselves.
Yes, it's like the wear and tear of the day. All of that stuff should be healed when we're rested. Some of that happens when we sleep, although a lot of us don't sleep very well, if we're stressed or whatever. Some of that's happening when we sleep, but also being in that parasympathetic state for a bit each day. It's just very rejuvenating and allows the kind of the wear and tear to be healed and slowed down a little bit.
Okay, so now we understand. Most of us know where our stress is coming from. Some of us don't. But I think we also get addicted to that feeling because I'm thinking like, okay, if I asked our listeners, when's the last time you didn't feel any stress? I'm
Mhm.
wondering how many of them would laugh like, oh, I don't know, because it becomes a norm. Is that something you see typically in your
Oh,
patients?
for sure. Yeah. Yes, definitely. It's no one's fault. It's just, honestly, I think that society has just promoted this, go, go, go mentality. A lot of us find our worth or our value from doing, right? And we forget that we sometimes need to be. We are human beings, not human doings, Dr. Hyman
Yeah.
likes to say. So we really need to just be and exist and have joy and relaxation and all these other things, but it's not rewarded, it's not valued in our society. So we end up just literally doing and being productive all day long.
I feel too that sometimes our ego gets in the way because we like to feel like the superhero that swoops in and fixes things or takes things on. How do we manage that if it's really we're the problem?
Yeah, that's a hard one. And that takes a lot of mindset shift, I think, for people to say, like, I'm not used to this because it can be very challenging to slow down when you're used to a really fast pace. It can feel uncomfortable or uneasy. So I think, it's a decision to take on a new challenge and see it in a different way. So your challenge, instead of going and supporting and doing more, the challenging part actually is how can you slow down and starting to see a value behind that, which is, it really does just take a mindset shift in a decision.
And I think of the word habit, like we're in the habit of go,
Yes,
go, 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 go. So
yes,
creating a new habit to slow down, to lower your stress is going to be hard. It's going to feel awkward and different and uncomfortable because your body and brain are used to the feeling that you've existed on.
yes, yes,
So
definitely.
tell me about so when I speak, I talk about cortisol levels, which I mentioned. So I know very little about anatomy, but I do know that we have our kidneys, and on top of our kidneys are these little hats that are
Exactly.
adrenal glands, and that's what produces the stress hormone cortisol. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now tell me how stress impacts those adrenal glands.
Yeah, so when our body senses a stressor, we have a very quick system that comes on, and that's like epinephrine, adrenaline. So your child is about to get hit by a car. That's not cortisol helping you, that's adrenaline, that's like immediate, right? Cortisol comes in when the stress has been longer term, not in those quick action kind of things, but the longer term stress without rest. Then the body starts to make cortisol to support that stressed state. Cortisol does a lot of good things. It raises our blood pressure. It does. It picks up our heart rate. It helps you get through. It's helps with clotting your blood. Your blood gets a little thicker, so that if you get cut or hurt, you won't bleed out. So there's all
So
these
we
different.
need it, right? We need it.
Yeah, we do need it. It's the problem is when we stay there too long, when our cortisol levels come up and we don't allow them to come down, and we get stuck and we sort of create a new set point for ourselves, kind of like a thermostat. In our house, if we keep pushing and pushing and the cortisol is high and high and high, eventually the reset system in our body says, "Oh, okay, this is our new norm. This is where we're supposed to keep the cortisol." And yeah, it's
So
a
it's like it's creating a new baseline every time. Like, okay,
yes,
this is normal, higher cortisol. Okay, and the body says, now this is normal. And now you're
yeah,
functioning at these
yes.
high cortisol levels. Tell me what happens when our cortisol is really high.
Yeah, it's ultimately damaging. It's helping you in the short term be more effective and productive and like survive. In the long term, it's a breakdown state of the body to have a high cortisol level. So we're breaking down the gut lining and producing a leaky gut. We need a lot of resources. It's a very energy demanding state. So the body's like, okay, where are we going to get all this fuel? And it will start to it breaks down the gut. It can break down the tissues and the bones, reproducing osteoporosis. It can break down muscle tissue if it needs to. It can break down the cartilage and the ligaments, so we get more injured. I don't know if anybody has noticed, we tend to get injured more often when we're in a stressed state.
Wow.
So it's actually quite damaging. It also, when we're in that place, we don't, some of the repair mechanisms, the immune system is kind of quieted down. We don't put as much reserves into the immune system because we need all that energy to maintain.
That's what I hear. I hear when people are stressed, they get sick. Like that's what
Yes,
I've seen
yes.
firsthand.
And that there are studies showing that your immune system is suppressed by chronic stress. So you might get sick and you're also more likely to get cancer.
Wow.
We need
Tell
our
me,
immune system on board, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell me, and maybe I saw a study on this and I might have even referenced it in my information, but what about inflammation?
Oh, yes. Stress is being stressed, having high cortisol, very inflammatory for sure.
Tell me what that means for people who know nothing about inflammation in the body.
Yeah. Inflammation, you can think of like you twist your ankle and it swells up. It's that kind of that same process, but it's all over. It's internal systemic inflammation. So you're going to have more aches and pains. You're going to have poor healing, poor digestion, all of that. You're just going to feel really slow and achy and all of that. And all of our chronic illnesses today that we know about, cancer, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, obesity, those are all inflammatory conditions. So inflammation is something we really want to try to tame and avoid in our system as much as possible.
So we don't want to scare anybody, right?
No,
We're not
no,
here.
no,
We want to inform you of this mind and body connection.
and empower. We want to
That
give,
was my next, yes.
yes,
So
yes, yes.
empower. So let's talk about that for a little bit. How can someone first bring awareness to their stress levels, and then how can we feel empowered with stress this in 2025?
Yeah, this is what I do in my practice all the time. So there's really we need an awareness first because awareness is the first stage of change, right? So if we are really go 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 all day, we're not going to notice. We're not going to be slow enough or aware enough to see how the stress is impacting us. So I really, really would encourage just to, even if it's just a few minutes, to slow down and check in with yourself. Whether it's a couple deep breaths, there's a tons of guided meditations, like a body scan kind of meditation you can do in just a few minutes. Something like that where you're checking in, gosh, does my jaw feel tight right now? Am I clenching? That used to be one of my big
All
tells.
the time. That's the one thing I don't realize I'm doing until I
Yeah.
loosen my, even our listeners, like try it right now. Like just
Yeah.
relax your
Like, yeah.
jaw. And
Uh-huh.
you can tell a difference when you do that. So this is part of that check-in process that you're
Yes.
talking about. Okay.
Yes. Are your shoulders up at your ears? That's another thing. Or just a lot of people will feel it in their gut or their stomach. Is there a burning in your stomach? Is there,
I thought I was just hungry when it burns.
Yeah, so you just want to check in and see how your body feels. And then when you do notice something, you can start to maybe try to breathe through it. Okay, I'm going to roll my shoulders out, try to let that go. But that's the first step is just kind of seeking it out. What does stress feel like for you? Because everybody has a different main way they feel stress.
How would someone know? So like we all feel stress. We can say that we all feel stress at some time. And then when I think about my cortisol levels, I'm like, how do I know if this is really impacting my cortisol levels and causing issues in my body? Like, how would someone know that?
Sure. Most people, there's a couple different stages where cortisol goes through over the course of chronic stress. And the first stage is really that wired but tired feeling. So if you feel kind of like jittery, anxious, like that feeling that you drank too much Starbucks, a little like
Mm,
frenetic energy, that kind of nasty energy,
yeah.
but you can't really sleep very well, that's a sign that your cortisol is up.
Huh.
That's high cortisol that makes us feel that way quite regularly. Then as this process continues over years of chronic stress, ultimately the cortisol starts to fall and we can get into a stage of just exhaustion. We just like, I have some patients who the alarm goes off and they're like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of bed and get through my day today.
Mm,
That's not the majority. I think the majority of us are more in that state of like wired but tired, you know?
yeah.
But if you're unsure, there are, functional medicine doctors, we do use functional cortisol testing, which is a saliva test. So you spit into these tiny little tubes 4 different times during the day, and we measure what your cortisol's doing. And then I can get a report to say, is it high? Is it low? Is it high when you're supposed to be sleeping at night and that's why you're having trouble falling asleep? Or, is it low in the morning when you need to get up and get going and you can't go, can't get moving? So, and then we can try to manipulate it once we see where it is, whether with lifestyle change or I often use supplements as well. But if you don't have access to this test, I think checking in and seeing where your symptoms are or what you're going through. I do have a stress quiz on my website if anyone
Oh,
wants to take that. And
I'll put that in the link for
great,
sure in
yeah,
this
yeah.
description notes.
Yeah, and there is, it'll give you a kind of a score as to like how stressed are you, and then you'll receive emails related to your score on it. What can you do, and how can you, just trying to educate and explain how you can turn things around.
That's amazing. One of the things I also love to talk about, and I think maybe you could help me. think this through, but I love to talk about how our thoughts impact our body. So
Mm,
let's say we are stressed, but how do we become more mindful of what we're thinking about? Because we have that voice in our head that tells us we're running late, we have this to do, what are we making for dinner?
yes.
We're always, projecting in the future. That is, tell me what those thoughts are having on our body, how that's impacting our body.
Yeah. I mean, those thoughts are often driving the whole stress response, right? So it can all start from a thought. Like I often talk about, you can be lying in your bed at night, cozy, all curled up, safe house, safe in community, whatever, and you can be in fight or flight because of your thoughts, right? You're
Yes.
totally safe. There's nothing happening to you, but it's the thoughts that we have running through our brain. So that's the real work, and it's some of the hardest work. But again, awareness is our first step. So maybe one day you say, okay, I'm gonna every couple minutes or every hour or so, I'm gonna just take note. Like what am I thinking? Is my thought positive? Is my thought scary? Is my thought, self-harming? Like a lot of our thoughts are really negative towards ourselves.
Yeah.
And so if you can catch and say, wow, I didn't realize I say terrible things to myself all day, or I'm always like, doom and gloom, seeing the worst outcome, which honestly is our evolution
Yeah.
has our brain go to that outcome, right?
Yep.
We now live in a very different society environment. We don't need our brain to protect us like it used to when we didn't have food, shelter, clothing, all of those things at the ready. So we kind of want to catch those thoughts. And then you want to ask, like, is this thought true?
Mm.
You don't
Yeah.
have to believe every thought you have. They're often just thoughts that were passed down to you from a family member, or, you thought a couple times in a row and then it just got really to be this negative loop that started to happen. So, are those thoughts true? And then is there if not, like how can I twist that thought around? So whether it's like all the way around and you turn it into well, no, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna be okay today. I have enough time to do the things I want to do. If you can't turn it all the way around like that, maybe you just lighten it up by 10%. Can you make
Yeah.
it 10% less negative, less heavy, less stressful?
That's a great point because I feel like we approach these things like, oh, we got to be all in. I'm going to do this. But like, what if we just started a little
Yes.
bit? Have
Yes.
you read the book, The Untethered Soul?
Yes. I love that book.
Okay, so I'm going to put a link for that in the description notes because I will tell you that book changed my life when it came to the voice in my head,
Mm.
especially when it goes into the very first chapter is the roommate. And we all have this
Yes.
roommate that talks to us. But then it goes on to say, like, imagine if that roommate, that voice in your head, were a real person that followed you around everywhere you went, saying all these things about you that you're not good enough, you're not thin enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not doing enough. Like, would you want to be friends? Absolutely not.
No
But
way. Yeah.
yeah, but that's how important it is to get to know the roommate that lives in our head and
Yes.
learn how to quiet it because our thoughts impact us on a cellular level.
Definitely.
And
Yes.
so it's like it is so important to take care of that part of you and
Mhm.
learning how to quiet that voice in your head so you
Right.
can just be, as you mentioned. Because if we just had to sit here and do nothing, it's like, oh my gosh, I should have my phone, I should be doing an email. But
Yes.
it's really keeping perspective on the impact of our thoughts and how it is impacting our bodies.
Another resource I would share is Dr. Daniel Amen, Amen. He is a functional psychiatrist and he loves to talk about how you don't have to believe every stupid thought you ever had. And he has a term, he wants us to catch our ants, which are automatic negative thoughts.
That's good.
And try to stomp those out. So he's great on social media if anyone wants to follow him. But he has some really good interesting ways to turn this all around too.
And you also mentioned a really good question is asking yourself, is this thought true?
Mhm.
And I think another way to look at that is this a fact or is this a feeling? Like
Yes.
work with facts, work with facts. Like even if you don't feel pretty enough, or good enough, it's like that's just a feeling. That doesn't
Hmm.
mean that it's true. It's just a feeling you have and it's not a fact. And I think that's what I love so much as a cancer survivor is I had to get control of my thoughts and I couldn't worry so much about the future. especially when we are dealing with fear of recurrence, because that has always been a thing in the community where it's like, what if cancer comes back? And then one of the things that helped me with that, and I think generally speaking could help other people, whether you've had a cancer diagnosis or whatever, is staying in the present moment is so powerful. And so when I start to feel an ounce of anxiety, I ask myself, is this coming from the past, something that's already happened and I can't change? Or is it coming from the future that doesn't even exist yet, that may not even happen? And that has helped me stay present because I've learned that this is where I'm going to find the most joy. There's a lot
Yeah.
of things that could happen in the future, but I feel like you're familiar with Eckhart Tolle. You'd be someone.
Yes.
Okay, so my
Yeah.
favorite quote that I always share with my audience is that worry pretends to be necessary but serves no useful purpose. So
Love it.
that worry, that thing that you're worried about and you're stressed about, isn't going to change the outcome.
Mhm.
So it's staying present and knowing that this moment's where you're going to find the most joy. That's it.
Yeah.
This
And
is it.
likely in this very moment, there's not something terrible going on,
Yeah. You're
right?
listening to a podcast.
Yeah,
You know, maybe you're
exactly.
going on a walk. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
just so many unknowns in the future, but worrying about it isn't going to change a
Mhm.
thing. And so that has helped me learn
That's very
how to monitor my mindfulness and to feel less stress because the last thing I want as a cancer survivor is to live in a state of fear. That's the worst thing I could do for my body as a survivor. So
100%.
yeah,
Yes.
it's been so important to me to become mindful of the thoughts I'm having, including thoughts I have about other people, because
Mm,
that can cause someone stress, right? If we feel
yeah.
negatively towards someone or a negative event happened. So I'm like, I want all good people in my life. I don't gossip about people because I have to live with that. I'm living with the negative feelings when I say something negative about someone, not the other person. It's me. Which is also where I feel like forgiveness has played a really big part in my life too, because I'm living with the unforgiveness and the bitterness. And I'm like, I can't, my body cannot afford to feel these
Oh,
negative
no.
feelings. So
Right.
I think learning about stress and the impact of our thoughts can be very empowering and knowing that we can do something about them.
Yeah. Yeah, you've done amazing work at
Thank you.
turning all of that around for yourself. It's so inspiring, and I'm empowering for your listeners that it can be done. You know,
Yeah.
Monica did it, and so you could do it too.
Yeah, and I think I've overall I've always been a really positive person, but what a lot of people don't know about me is I was super bitter. I was
Mm,
really bitter before cancer. Like people who had wronged me, people who said the wrong thing, people who hurt my feelings, people I had cut out of my life. I was 100% bitter, but I was the one feeling it. I was feeling all of that bitterness,
yeah.
not them. And so that really
Yeah.
just helped me make that shift of I don't want to feel this way anymore. So I don't want to be upset over things that happened in the past that I can no longer control. And I feel better now. I feel empowered now. When I look at those things were causing me stress, those things were impacting me negatively, but we all have the power to choose how we respond to things around us.
That's awesome. Yeah, all of those negative emotions are inflammatory. They are negatively impacting the health of your cells, the
I
fear,
never thought about that.
the worry, the anxiety, the bitterness, the unforgiving, all of that is inflammatory. And if you're unsure if an emotion is inflammatory or not, how does it make you feel?
Hmm.
Right? If it makes you feel good, it's not inflammatory. Those
Yeah.
negative ones, yeah.
So 2025, I know we talked about one of the things we could do is slow down. If someone says, I want to reduce my stress levels in 2025, we know it's not impossible.
No.
What are some ways we can do that?
Yeah, I think that some of the easiest ways, I definitely want it to be doable and practical because we're very busy. So the first thing I would suggest is trying to sit for 5 minutes in quiet. And maybe you listen to some guided meditation or you listen to some music or something, but you're just not doing, right? You're not accomplishing in the way that we typically think of checking the box off all these things on our to-do list. You're actually just trying to be and feel what's in the moment and what's happening for you. So that if
And that sounds so easy, but I think some people may struggle with it because you said it's not like you're like, "Oh, I sat for 5 minutes and I accomplished so much today." but you really are on that cellular level for your body. You
Yeah.
are accomplishing a lot.
Yeah, I with a lot of my clients, we work on creating a micro break in their day, is what I like to call it. And it's like 3 to 5 minutes. I think a lot of my clients find around 3 p.m. is a great time to do it because our energy starts to take a dip. So if you could take a micro break at around 3 p.m. or wherever it fits in your day, just shut down the computer, step away. At first, it might feel awkward or really hard. The more you do it, the easier it gets and the better you start to feel. So now many of my clients tell me they crave that time of day and they can't
Yes.
wait for 3 p.m. I have one woman, she's a teacher, and at the end of her day, before she goes home, she sits and she centers herself and she gets into that calm place. And when she gets home, it's a whole different afternoon, than what if she had.
Yeah.
So sitting for 5 minutes would be my first recommendation. And then my second one of my favorite things to do is journaling. And I think that's helpful for a person who doesn't like to just be still, and needs to have something more to do. And you might be like, I don't know what to journal about. And I would say, just start writing like, hey, how's my day going? Or how am I feeling right now? And we're not looking for punctuation and beautiful penmanship, right? We're not
Mhm.
looking for somebody else to be reading this. We're looking for like a brain dump and free flow to get to some of the emotions behind what's going on in our day, in our life.
I'm sure there's some scientific benefit. I don't know the reason, but like to do that, to get it out of your head and onto paper.
Yes. And I don't know how much it's been kind of solidified, but I know that personally and in lots of other people's lives, once it's written down, our brain can really let it go.
Mm,
We needed to know that it's there so we can come back to it. Now I can like let that thought go. I think just having it out of our brain is really, really helpful. It lightens the load. And our brain can kind of say, okay, you've written it down. Now I don't have to keep it circling and circling and circling. Sometimes that
yeah.
same worry, it's just like, oh my gosh, how many times can I think about this one stupid thing? And if
Yeah.
you can write it down, often I find it stops circling quite so much.
That's super powerful. This is one area I've always struggled in is journaling. I think sometimes I don't want to be mean to myself, but I have lazy tendencies. Like when it comes to taking care of me, like I will rest in a heart. I will lay down, I will watch TV, I'll get on but
Yeah.
that's not really what I need. Like I need
Yes.
to like really dump this. So can you give me some encouragement to get started?
Oh, yeah.
What do I need to do?
Yeah. So if it helps you, maybe you buy a really pretty journal. That if that would be enticing to you, set like a beautiful, maybe you get a really nice new pen. For me, I've been in school for a long time, so I love the accessories kind of thing. Find a cozy spot. Like, is there a spot in your house with a comfy chair? You could get a cup of tea, a blanket. It's cold out right now. It's kind of
Yeah.
a nice way to get started. And if you still don't really feel like doing it, you could say, you know what, I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes and I'm going to
Mm.
journal for 2 minutes. And if I don't like it, I'm going to stop
That
and just see
sounds,
what
I
happens.
could do 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Again, journaling is this big task, but let's break it down to something really easy that
exactly.
Monica can handle. And I
Exactly.
can do it. But I've also heard how valuable these journals are down the road. Like it's, yes, in the
Mm,
moment it helps, but like reflecting 5 years from now
yeah.
on your growth, I'm sure feels really, really good.
Yeah, definitely. If you try 2 minutes, sometimes I'll say try an experiment. Tell yourself for the next week, I'm going to try to do 2 minutes of journaling most days, and then I'm going to see if I liked it or not.
Okay.
And at the end of the 2 minutes, if you're on a roll, maybe you go a little longer. If you don't like it, you just stop, and it's okay. And trying to not have a lot of judgment around, oh, I'm not good at journaling, or I failed at that. It's not for everyone. It's just an option.
How would you help someone with a goal? They say, Dr. Emily, I want to reduce my stress levels in 2025. However, I'm addicted to feeling busy and I feel really productive. And sure, I'll stop for 5 minutes, but the other, minutes in the day, I'm going to go, 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 go. How do you get someone really
Yeah,
grounded?
great question. What I would say is that those 5 minutes, if you start to do them regularly enough, are going to shift your cortisol and all everything going on in your body. You're eventually going to get into what we call the parasympathetic mode within those 5 minutes, and you're going to feel it. And it's like this light bulb moment that, my patients will talk to me about, like this teacher I mentioned who looks forward or craves that break at the end of the day. She knows how she feels when she does that. And so while it was really hard to get started, once she got into the place where it's like, oh wow, like I'm breathing deeper, my shoulders have dropped. I feel lighter. Like once you hit that moment, you're like, oh, now I'm hooked. Now I
Okay.
see the value here, and I'm gonna keep coming back to this. So yeah, see if you can try it long enough till you get that. It's like the runner's high, till you get that.
Well, yeah, but I was also going to say, what if they feel the runner's high when they're productive? Like, what if that addiction feels
Yeah,
very satisfying?
yeah, and I would say that's a little bit of a different high. That's a little bit like, so the term adrenaline junkie is coming to mind. It's not, perfect, but it's a different type of feeling that I think once you get into the other state, you'll see it's better.
Okay.
That's all I can say is
Give it
just
a chance.
try, give it a
Okay.
try. Yep. And it is going to feel awkward and weird and hard at first. So you're going to set yourself up and say, I'm really going to commit to these 3 to 5 minutes, for a couple weeks before I decide if I'm going to let it go or not. And see how much more productive you become after you slow down for a little bit.
I share sometimes that our body doesn't know the difference between good stress and bad stress.
Mm.
Is that true? Like, does that feel right? Like,
Yeah,
like
I,
say
I
you're
mean,
getting married, right? Like that's,
right.
and you're
Yes.
planning a wedding and it's like that's a really good thing, but our
Yes.
body is still responding to a
Yes.
stressor.
I think that is true. I know there are days where I'm like just like in the zone with work, what I'm doing, and I'm like, I love this, and I just keep going too far. That and my body needed rest. So yes, I do think that even though you're like happy and enjoying what you're doing, you can take that too far. So just the little pauses can help slow us down and have us check back in a little bit. Can be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And I did want to mention you talked about, like you're great at like laying on the couch or scrolling your phone or whatever. And a lot of times people say, I know how to relax. Like I watch TV and, all of that sort of stuff. And that's fine. There's no harm in that per se, unless you're doing it for hours upon hours. But that is sort of kind of just numbing out, if that makes sense. And what we're looking for is a layer deeper, a true restorative kind of practice where when we're numbed out, we're not really healing anything. We're not really dropping into the parasympathetic state. And I would argue on social media, we're very much in a stressed state.
Hmm.
The constant, the newness and the dopamine that's going off, and we're getting kind of all hyped up on that. So we're looking for a more restorative practice than zoning out with Netflix or
Like
whatever.
a connection to your body when you're relaxing. That
Yeah, no,
you
you're
said something that made
fine.
me also want to talk about this because I'm very mindful of what I watch. So imagine
Yes.
you're relaxing watching Netflix and you're watching a really scary movie. Tell me what's happening to the body when you do that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, your body thinks you're in that movie. Like it thinks you're being chased, or, the
So
murderer
back
is
the
coming at
stress
you.
hormones back, right? Cortisol levels
Oh,
are
for
still
sure.
up.
For sure. Yes. Yes. The news, same thing. Like I have patients who like to watch the news before they go to bed, and we really talk a lot about like that is not ideal. You're going to go to bed and you're going to have dreams and be less deeply resting because your body went to bed in that kind of hyped up state. So yeah, I for sure in the evening, trying to have more peaceful, calming things. I think in general, we don't need it, all of that. I don't know. I live with three men, boys. I have two teenagers and my husband, and they really like the hyped up, like craziness.
Yeah.
It's not for me so much.
Same. I can't. I think it was when I was pregnant. We were watching a show and I was feeling stress, and I was like, my baby's feeling the stress right now, and
Oh
which
yeah.
stopped me. Like from that point, I'm like, I can't watch anything that makes my heart race because it's impacting my body in a negative way.
That
And
was a
I want to
great
say
realization.
you posted this, or maybe I've seen it somewhere else, but it's that healthiness isn't just what you eat, drink, it's what you watch, it's what you read. It's
Yes,
it's
what you
everything in our
consume.
environment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And those can all cause stressors in our
Yes.
lives.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. The people you hang out with, like you mentioned, yeah, all of that.
That's a really good one too. Oh my gosh, I'm thinking, do I have any friends that cause me stress? Or maybe they're so stressed, I pick up on that energy, then I feel
Yeah.
stressed. And that's also another awareness because when someone is having something stressful in their lives, I have to tell myself, like, that's not meant for me to carry. Like, that is their issue. Like, I can't take that on and I can't do anything about it anyway, you
Yeah.
know? So it's having
Yeah.
that mindfulness around where are these stressors coming from? And then you've given some really great tools on what to do.
Yeah. Well, you and I think are both empaths, highly
Yes.
sensitive, so we pick up on everyone else's energy. And if your listeners resonate with that, like you can feel what other people in the room are feeling, you have to actually kind of double down on how protective you are of your own energy and not picking all of that up. I did that for many, many years, and that will make you sick.
Yeah, because you want to fix it. You want to be
Yes.
everybody's everything, and that's
Yes.
impossible.
Yes.
Dr. Emily, this has been so amazing. How can our listeners either work with you, find out
Okay.
more information from you, or do that quiz that you were talking about?
Yeah, yeah. My website is Balanced Living FM for functionalmedicine.com. That's lots of information on there. My quiz is on there. There is a link for a free discovery call. If somebody wants to have a chat with me for 15 minutes and see if what they're dealing with is something that I can help with, I'm happy to talk. And I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Maybe we can put the links in there. I'm on
Yep,
LinkedIn. And yeah, I would love to support anyone who's ready and needs a little help. But I think we can all take on a little bit of self-care on our own in the new year.
absolutely. Well, Dr. Emily, thank you so much for this information. One clarifying point, you only practice in Ohio, correct?
Yes, I am licensed in Ohio, so I can only see clients that live in Ohio. However, I do have a lifestyle program that I've created. It's run by my health coaches, and they are licensed throughout the United States. Very transformative program. Most of our clients see about a 56% reduction in symptoms in 3 months.
What?
Yes.
Holy
Yeah, it's
smokes.
really powerful. So if you live outside of Ohio and you want some support, these are the coaches are trained by me. We definitely work on stress. That's one of the big pieces. They also help you with your nutrition, your sleep, and your movement. And lifestyle is where it's at. If you tweak those little, those avenues a little bit, we can see remarkable changes happen.
And that's what we want to do. We want to feel good and live a long life. And I
Yes.
know that you're helping people do that. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure talking with you, Dr. Emily.
Thanks for having me, Monica. It was great
All
to be
right.
here.
All right. Bye.
Bye.